everybody? Welcome back to another installment of a Fantasy Cast. I know it's been a while. We're going to explain that in a second. He is Ty White. I am Lachlan McTagg, welcoming you back to yet another episode here. And we are in familiar territory for both of ourselves, Ty being in Toronto, myself being back in Phoenix. Last episode we brought you guys was actually a live episode with the both of us here in Phoenix, Arizona. So
in that room.
In the time since that episode, I went back to Toronto and now I'm back in Phoenix. So speaking of that, we're gonna recap our hiatuses here, I guess, our breaks, our time off. So Ty, what did you do exactly? Because I know you did a bunch of different things over the break. I know we saw each other briefly as well, but
yeah. Oh wow.
Explain?
It's been a little while now since. Well, first it's been like a month since we actually released that episode in Phoenix, I think. And then since then, we hope you all. By the way, we hope you all had a great Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. Because it feels weird that we're doing this again, but because it's been a long time. But yeah, I've done a few things. I was fortunate enough to see we reconnected on our high school, or the high school and middle school had their Christmas concert, so we got to see each other downtown and hang out a little bit there. So that was great, and saw a lot of old people. A lot of old friends rather. And then Christmas and stuff was great, but the highlight was definitely I went to 2 NFL games over the break, which was just unexpected. I didn't think I was. But my Christmas present, the only thing I really wanted or asked for was to go to the Chargers Colts game on Monday Night Football, which was 2 weeks ago now or something like that. And the Chargers won and they clinched a playoff spot. I didn't high five Herbert and scream like a little girl at the other game, but I did get Austin Eckler's signature, which was pretty cool on one of the game programs, and Chris Rump's signature. You're gonna have to be a Chargers fan to have any idea who that is, but that was great. And then fast forward a bit after the new year, this was planned for a while. I went with a few friends to the Buffalo Cincinnati game, and we can talk about that a bit more in a second, but obviously that was the Damar Hamlin game, or the Damar Hamlin half of a quarter game, barely half of a quarter game. But yeah, it was a fantastic break, and we'll talk about that a bit more. But how about yourself?
Yeah, I was back and forth. I actually did quite a bit of traveling. So after finishing up the semester in early December, I was chilling basically for a week here in Phoenix on my own. It's kind of boring, just, waking up, going down, going to the gym, seeing some people here and there. I don't know, I watched a lot of hockey over that stretch. A lot of hockey. Just to keep myself occupied. And then my dad had some meetings down in Cancun in Mexico, so I went there for a week actually, which was pretty sweet. I will not complain about that.
Yeah.
But it made my luggage a bit weird. It made my packing schedule a bit weird because I had to pack for a vacation in Mexico and then going back to Toronto, which I hadn't actually been in the cold since last March.
Yeah.
So I had just a mishmash of stuff coming back from Cancun. And then actually my flight back to Toronto was the night of our old boys reunion. It was a pub night.
Yeah.
And obviously since we're both 19, and your birthday's coming up too, Ty, by the way.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Almost. But since we're both 19 and obviously in Toronto, we can both legally go to bars and whatnot. So we had a pub night, and I was fresh off the plane. I'd gotten off the plane an hour and a half prior. I showed up, I saw some of the boys, and again, you mentioned we went to the Christmas concert reunion. We went up on stage, sang a couple carols. It was great. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I actually too I saw where you film the podcast and record the podcast. I saw the little shoebox in person. Yeah, it was cool. It was cool to see it on the background where all the magic happens on your end. And then went up north a little bit. So much snow.
Yeah.
I've never had to do so much shoveling in my life. It was crazy. we had to dig ourselves out, and like our road too in the winter is only accessible by like snowmobile. We can't drive in.
Oh yeah.
So we had to walk in, and then we had to make snowmobile tracks on our driveway to get in and out to get our bags and stuff from the car at the marina.
Yeah.
So it took us like a long time to do that because we got the sled stuck like a bunch of times, had to winch them out, and it was so much fun. And then the snow all melted for some reason, and it just was really crappy the rest of the time. But yeah,
It is really warm. It is really warm. Yeah.
Like it feels like a Vancouver winter. You know, like it's like just above zero. It's always like misty and rainy and stuff. But
yeah,
I was back and forth between up north and the city in Toronto, and it was good. And then last weekend, actually, our neighbors on our lake, their daughter had a wedding in Windsor. And it's funny, my dad actually went to school at the University of Windsor there.
No.
So we were visiting all his old spots, and he was pointing out, as I used to go here, like our old frat house was here and stuff.
The pledge.
Yeah, no, it was pretty funny. So I was in Windsor last weekend for a wedding. Literally was at and saw actually one of our former teachers too at the wedding.
Did you really?
Yeah, I saw. I guess I'll say his name here. I saw Mr. Jekyll actually at the wedding.
Oh no!
Yeah. Say apparently his wife is cousins with the guy that she married.
Very cool.
So
shout out Mr. Jekyll. Fantastic.
Yeah. So saw him. It was funny. And then the wedding party was on the Saturday night. Sunday afternoon, I was flying out of Detroit, and now I'm back starting my second semester in Phoenix.
That's amazing. And for both of us, it was a Christmas of heavy drinking and not much thinking. No, I'm just kidding. It was. I think everyone had a great time over the holidays. But
Jesus, that was not expected.
No,
yeah.
Just
another thing too. I actually went to 3 hockey games over the break.
Really? I didn't even know that.
Yeah, so good friend Christian Hagath took me
the boss.
He took me to the Leafs next gen game just before Christmas. Yeah, against Philadelphia. So we saw some people there, and it was fun. It was good. I hadn't been to a Leafs game since like 2018 too.
Wow.
So it was good to get back into Scotiabank for a Leaf game. And then my mom's birthday was on the 3rd of January.
Oh, wow.
And we got Scotia Club seats, Scotia Club like tickets and reservations in the restaurant there.
That's so cool.
So we had a dinner there. They played St. Louis, so we saw obviously Robert Thomas, St. Andrews grad, or not St. Andrews grad, but St. Andrews alum, I guess.
Yeah.
And then my mom also knows Jordan Binnington's dad, so she was talking with Jordan Binnington's mom and whatnot at the game and stuff, because he played a great game that night. I went to a shootout. And then the third game I went to was in Detroit, actually, on the wedding weekend.
That's awesome.
Friday night, we saw Panthers, Red Wings. And when I say Little Caesars Arena might have the best concourse in all of hockey, like, I mean it. That, like, walking around that building in Detroit is crazy. It's crazy how much space there is, how much there is to do, how much food and activities and drinks and everything. Like the whole package there is nuts. They did it to perfection, and I love it. And I would absolutely go see a game there. So if you're ever thinking of going to a Leafs Red Wings game, go.
Do it.
100%. It's worth the 401.
I'd love to, because I haven't been to that I haven't been to that Little Caesars one. I've been Joe Louis when it was Joe Louis.
It's torn down now.
Yeah, completely.
They tore it down completely. It's weird.
Yeah, but that's a great suggestion. So lots of sports then for us, I guess.
Yeah, tons.
Yeah. But I went to one Leafs game because a friend brought me, and they got pumped by the Kraken. I mean, they got absolutely.
Oh, you went to the Kraken game?
They got the rear end handed to them. But it was just fun to be there. Yeah, it was a bad game, but it was just fun to be there. Shout out to Gordy. But one thing we're gonna go back to this episode, we're just gonna briefly touch on like a fantasy wrap up, because obviously fantasy football's over now. So this is
so weird to be over.
I know dude. I felt like we just started like last month, and we're gonna transition now in our channel too, more to just NFL talk in general. But this will be kind of a fantasy wrap up. So one thing I do want to briefly talk about was that because I was I don't want to say fortunate enough. This is the wrong thing, but I was lucky enough to be able to go to Cincinnati to see the Bills Bengals. And leading up to that, I was extremely excited because obviously I'm a diehard Chargers fan, but a close second because of family and friends and geographical location. You like the Bills, or you want the Bills to do well. And my grandpa's a diehard Bills fan, and that was supposed to be like, well, obviously in the fight for the 1 seed, obviously two of the best offenses in the league. The Bengals had won like 7 in a row up until that point. The Bills were super hot, and it started off Burrow threw a touchdown to Tyler Boyd, and then the Bills had a nice drive, and they scored a field goal at least, and then the Damar Hamlin thing happened, and no one in the stadium, from my perspective, no one knew what the heck was going on. Everyone, because there was literally an injury maybe 5 minutes beforehand, and of course, they take a second and they just bring the guy off the field, but we didn't know who went down or what was happening because there was like big circles. The players looked really surprised, and they brought out an ambulance, but the ambulance wasn't taking anyone. There wasn't any stretcher or anything, and it was really scary. Then people started going on their phones, and ESPN was updating what was happening, and people found out what was happening, and everyone started to get real scared. By the way, some of the nicest fans I've ever met, Cincinnati fan,
Really?
same boat as a Bills fan. Yeah, they were so nice. They were very supportive.
Crazy. Well, and one thing too is that's funny you say that because when we were at the Cardinal game last month, or I guess in late November, we were remarking on how nice Cardinal fans were. So that's good that Bengal fans are. And were Colts fans similar, or what were they like?
Honestly, Colts fans actually, it was hilarious because they knew that they weren't going to make the playoffs that year, right?
Oh, so they were kind of they were kind of cheering.
Some guy
for
was
the,
like,
the
"We should
best
switch
pick.
jerseys." Some guy asked me to switch jerseys. I was like, "No, I'm not giving you this Herbert jersey." But like, they were super nice. But I'm sure if they were in the playoffs, it wouldn't be as nice. But
yeah, okay. Anyway,
Bengals
sorry,
fans,
little diversion from your story. My bad.
No. You're right though. But like Bengals fans, they were like kind of nice beforehand. And I'll be honest, I was I was an undercover cop there for the Chargers. I'm in my Stephon Diggs jersey. I'm going talking to people, and my shot at the other people is that he's not even the best quarterback in your draft class as Bengals fans because Herbert's there, and I got so many dirty looks saying that. I'm not gonna lie, it was really
for sure
standing in the line, but bit of undercover Chargers work there against the Bengals fans. But once they found out what was happening, it was a very humane moment, and everyone was very respectful of the situation, and they wished us the best as Bills fans. And there's videos and famous pictures of some guy holding up signs saying "Pray for Damar, pray for Buffalo." So, and obviously he stayed in Cincinnati. Yeah.
Like this was a bit of a different situation, right? Like it's one thing. Like sadly you see it all the time, right? Like guy goes like, even like I'll bring up like the one I saw live on TV was the RG3 one.
Yeah.
And like that's just an unfortunate injury.
Yeah.
People get carried off, and then you play on. It's just you got a different quarterback under center for Washington. Like there's nothing you can do if the guy just plainly just tore his ACL on the field. But this was like that, like you could have witnessed like an actual death on the field, which is,
and I believe he clinically
pretty
died.
surreal.
Like he actually died once or twice, and they had to bring him back. So thank God for that. And then eventually we stayed in our seats for a while, and they were like, okay, the game's not going to be taking place. And in my mind, I'm like, well, I hope I either get a refund or this game's tomorrow at like 1:00 or something like that. And we still really didn't know the whole thing with Damar. And then he was still at the hospital. And obviously you don't want to play if you have a player like still fighting for his life. But the time the Bills played the next week, he was much better in the hospital, and he watched the Bills game, obviously that amazing game where Naheem Hines returned 2 to the house, and it's been 3 months since the Bills had returned a touchdown off a kickoff. So special, divine intervention type moment there, which was beautiful. But the actual game itself was so unfortunate what happened. And nothing but prayers for Damar Hamlin and his health. But we're glad because he's removed from Cincinnati Hospital, and hopefully things will be better there. But certainly a very interesting experience actually being there. And the only thing I can think of, like you mentioned the RG3 thing, in sports, is it happened to Christian Eriksen during the Euros. in
That was
20.
that wasn't much as contact as much as just like heart rhythmically kind
Yeah,
of. Yeah, and the heat had something to do with that too. Like there was a lot of
yeah,
factors, cardio, because obviously soccer is a little bit different cardio wise than
yeah.
in football.
No, absolutely. But in terms of like actually someone like dying on the field or almost dying on the field, that was probably the closest thing in sports, or at least in recent times. Um, so it was pretty scary once we found out what was happening. But thank God that everything has gotten much better since then, and Buffalo's looking pretty darn good going into the playoffs.
Yeah, we'll talk about that a little later too.
Yeah.
But one thing I'll say, like from my perspective, I don't know, like I was watching the World Junior game actually,
Yeah.
the Canada-Slovakia game,
Hmm.
and that was the game when it went into overtime, and Bedard danced through three guys and went backhand and scored. Like it was probably one of the
Yeah.
nicer goals I've ever seen in the World Juniors.
Hmm.
In overtime, like the kid's unreal. And so I went from that. I was like, oh my God, Canada just won an overtime on an
Yeah.
unbelievable goal from Bedard. And I was like, yeah, let's check on the Bills game. Let's check on the Bills game. Turn on the Bills game. And it's Joe Buck, like in like a really unlike Joe Buck voice, talking about an incident that happened on the field.
Mm.
And immediately I was like, oh yeah, I can't, like, and when they started to explain it, I was like, yeah, I can't watch this. Like,
Yeah.
because from what I understand, it's basically like a magic bullet. He got hit in the chest and his heart was at a certain rate. It honestly scared me because, playing hockey all those years, I took a lot of hits straight to the chest.
Yeah.
Like a lot of hits along the boards, like not even shoulder to shoulder, just like shoulder straight into my chest. Like, and it's scary to think when you're watching that, being like that, like all those hits, like that could have been me laying on the ice, like just blood pressure drops to zero kind of thing. So
Absolutely.
it was pretty surreal. But yeah, the Bills have some magic behind them right now, and really hoping they can join me here in Phoenix in a few weeks.
Oh, that'd be nice, eh? But they're Hamlin strong as of right now. So let's just do a quick recap of our fantasy league, or at least the one that we're both in. We didn't win. Neither of us won. And
Nor came close, might I add.
No, God. But okay, and this was the thing. I actually had the best regular season that I've ever had in our league. And I finished technically first in our league, 9-3. I was the only one with that record. And in the first round of the playoffs, I lose. At least I lost to the guy who went on to win it all. Good friend of ours, Tommy, who had a 5-7 record.
Yeah, him and I were like literally like neck and neck. Like I think he got into the playoffs ahead of like the other two guys, including myself, or the other guy, including myself, who are 5-7 because of like total points scored. Or so there was something, there was some weird tiebreaker that it came down to, and he got in. But like it's weird because like I could have been the 8th seed, the other guy could have been the 8th seed, and then Tommy goes on to
friggin' run the whole thing.
Yeah, he runs Tommy runs the table and just like blows everyone up.
Yeah, so congratulations to you, Tommy. And the other interesting thing to mention, that it was a twin final. His twin brother, Owen, was also in the finals, which, I mean, what are the odds of that happening? That's pretty cool that both brothers played each other.
And both brothers, and the finals matchup, seeding-wise, was a 7-8 final.
It's just disgusting. It's just
like,
horrible. That's everything wrong with fantasy football is right there.
That honestly, that's everything wrong and right with fantasy football.
Yeah,
it's like it's
and
keep in mind too, our playoffs worked on an aggregate base,
which I very much like, actually.
I like it a lot, actually, because you can't just have the one-off fluke week where you put up 160 and then move on to the next round. Weeks. You have to, you gotta have two like really, really solid weeks.
Yeah.
But at the same time too, if your team puts up like 90, if the team,
Tommy had about 8 fluke weeks. Sorry, Tommy. No, it wasn't a fluke. Sorry, keep going, Lachlan. I'll go over his team and stuff too.
Yeah, let's just go over his team. That's 6 consecutive fluke weeks.
8 fluke weeks. Tom, you had a fantastic team, actually, looking at it. And
his team was actually really, really good, and actually was fairly deserving of a championship. Which is funny, sure. But we're just making fun
his
of
bench is very questionable, but he peaked at the right time. So he had Gino at quarterback, Geno Smith, Derrick Henry, and Jamal Williams were running backs. his receivers were Devontae Adams, A.J. Brown, and Amari Cooper. And Amari Cooper was the most underrated of those three because he had a fantastic couple, like last week. He was catching touchdowns.
Well, yeah, he once Deshaun came in, his value went up a little bit, but like he's a good receiver. It's just he was in Cleveland for the season.
Yeah, pretty much. Like his tight end, TJ Hawkinson. Funny story about that is that during we do a fantasy football draft. We try to do it in person every year. And at the draft, Tommy was asking me for some advice, and I was looking through specifically with tight ends, and I was looking through them. And he has a touchscreen laptop, so I accidentally drafted TJ Hawkinson for him, who ended up beating me or helping to beat me in the playoffs, which is kind of a full circle moment there. But DJ Hawkinson, fantastic quarterback. The Vikings, that move helped him a lot and helped fantasy owners a lot because some weeks he had 2-3 touchdowns in a game on an already fantastic Vikings offense. Then he had Carlson as a kicker for the Raiders and the Colts defense. But that bench is just ugly. That is disgusting. Other than Mike Williams, who is injured for a little bit. He had Michael Carter, he had Van Jefferson, Cairo Santo. Why do you have 2 kickers, Tommy? He had Dak, the Jaguars defense, and I don't even know who this is. Hassan Haskins, who's like a 3rd-string running back for the Titans. That might be the worst bench in all of fantasy football to go on and win a championship.
I mean, they don't ask how, they ask how many, and Tommy has a chip, so.
And 6
Congrats to him. Congrats to him. He's got to defend the title next year.
Yeah.
And oddly enough, our friend, I wonder if you guys remember the episode where we interviewed Griffin Ardill last year, a good friend.
Yes.
He's a 2-time champion, but he came last in our league this year. Mm-hmm. So he went from first to worst.
Yeah.
So if you think you had a really bad year, think that you at least you didn't go first to worst, because that's tough.
That is very tough, but that raises the interesting thing. So there's 2 people who were able to make the draft this year. Obviously you, because you were in Arizona already, and we do it in late August. But Griffin goes to the University of Colorado, Boulder, Colorado, and an interesting punishment might be their new coach is Deion Sanders. To go and tackle Deion Sanders while you rush the field might be the fantasy punishment. Might be a beatdown on behalf of prime time on Griffin Ardill. That'd be
either that or just go to like a walk-on tryout, because I know at the colleges.
Oh my god!
Yeah, but actually no. But here's the thing though: is like Griff played football in high school. He wouldn't actually. I don't think he would actually do as bad as like some of the other guys in our league.
No, not as bad as others. But like if you're going up against like there are some walk-ons who go there, preferred walk-ons who are like 6'6", 285.
Dude, there's like walk-ons who are like 2 or 3 stars. Like,
yeah. You're ready to get your ass like absolutely.
I would do horrible.
Yeah,
horrible at a football walk-on tryout.
Yeah,
I would get like I think I'm a pretty strong guy, but I'm not like football strong.
Like you do well. I've never hockey tryout, not a hockey walk-on.
Yeah, I'd get walked a little bit.
No, it's all right. I mean, but like football players, like you're looking at your life might be in danger. Just getting absolutely locked out there. But honestly, that might be the best idea I think I've ever heard for a fantasy punishment. We mic them up and film it. That would be absolutely hilarious. Yeah, but shout out Griffin.
Someone put something in our fantasy chat today that I laughed at.
Yeah, and it was really bad.
I can't say. I'm looking at. I can't say this.
No, it's just so bad.
I can't. No, I'm not gonna. I can't say that.
No. I don't think we can.
No, I can't say that.
It's really bad, but the videos.
Yeah. Anyway,
I've seen a couple on TikTok like that. They're just horrible. Yeah, we're not going to that. We're gonna name 1 or 2 players who we think are fantasy studs. We'll go from our own teams this year who have just been amazing. Personally, the best pick that I made, other than actually, I'll get to this guy in a second, but the best pick just because of scarcity in the position, and arguably the best pick in all of fantasy football this year, and one of the reasons I finished first in our league in 9-3 was Travis Kelce. Because if you had Travis Kelce in your league and you're facing, obviously you have to face another tight end each week. He was significantly better this year, like as we talked about a little bit before the episode,
which is crazy because I had him last year and I let him go for the sake that I thought his stats were going to regress, and holy crap, was I wrong?
Yeah.
So I really aided on that one.
Well, the thing is, like, they didn't regress; stayed somewhat the same. But it seemed like every other tight end just was not as good this year. Hawkinson showed up late. Mark Andrews was the one last year who was actually like Kelsey level of output and performance. But this year, because the bit of a quarterback carousel, injuries, whatnot, for Baltimore, he wasn't as good, and Kittle didn't do too much. I mean, it was
Darren
so
Waller. I had
Waller,
Darren
yeah.
Waller. I drafted Darren Waller fairly late for what I thought he was worth. He had a good year when he was playing. He gave me good output, like double digits here and there, but he was just injured for a huge chunk of like he was on IR for a huge chunk of the season, which fantasy that just eats you alive.
No, for sure. That's the problem.
And that was part of the reason. That was part of the problem with me is like my strategy going into this year was I want to draft a bunch of guys who I think can get me like 15 points.
Yeah.
Like I'm not going for anything huge. I did like because if everyone gets me 15 points, then it's a kicker and a defense that can put you over the edge. Then all of a sudden you're looking at 125 points per week, and if that's it, then you're going to win a lot more games than not in a 12-person PPR league. I was just trying to do simple math and try and do that. And for the first couple of weeks, it was working really well. And then injuries started to set in, some off weeks, some bye weeks and injuries. That really screwed with me.
Yeah.
Because I had different guys going out at different times. So the middle of the year, I think I was on a 5-game losing streak, just injuries and bye weeks, just because I was just putting out not great lineups because my hand was just forced. So, but in the playoffs, the guys picked it up. I had really good weeks down the stretch and good finish. So I'm kind of happy with that, even though I came 9th. Not great. Regressed yet again this year. So got a lot of searching to do in the off season.
Yeah, for sure. But like you said, injuries, obviously, that's the biggest thing about fantasy football. You can't control that. But yeah, even another person too this year, when we were talking on the topic of tight ends, of your Atlanta Falcons, Kyle Pitts. Not only did he have a season-ending injury, but he just wasn't getting the ball when he was playing. And it was the most disappointing thing because this guy was still being drafted.
He was taken so high in the draft. So high.
Yeah. Because his athletic ability.
He was like the
upside.
He was one. I think he was the second tight end taken in our draft. I think it was Kelsey and then him.
Kelsey, Pitts. Someone took
Hawkinson and then Kittle, probably. Yeah. Where like the first and that's nuts. Like before like Mark Andrews.
Exactly. To think that what happened this year to him, not discounting the injury. We're talking about when he was playing and the Falcons were actually winning. Remember they were like 500. They were 4-4 at one point. He was not getting the ball. Oh, those are the glory days.
Oh yeah.
But he just wasn't getting the ball. So disappointing. Atlanta should change a lot in the offseason, in my opinion. Desmond.
But here's the thing. I think they're closer than people give them credit for.
No, they definitely are. It's mostly
here's my thing, right? Algier comes in, next man up mentality when Patterson goes down. Turns in one of the better rookie, if not one of the best rookie running back performances in Falcons franchise history.
Yeah.
Puts himself legitimately in the ring for offensive rookie of the year. Now he's probably not going to win it. Still, he's putting himself, kind of in the conversation a little bit because he had a great season at running back. Yeah, Took the pressure off Cordero. Cordero played great. Drake London was getting the ball a little bit more. Obviously with Pitts, it is what it is. Desmond Ridder was not bad when he came in for Mariota. When Mariota got injured, he was not bad at all.
No, they are a quarterback away.
Yeah,
like literally a quarterback away from making a decent playoff.
Yeah, and for me, I think what the Falcons got to do is they got to go heavy on the defense in the draft, and then I think they got to take someone on the defensive end, probably a linebacker, ideally, in the first round, linebacker, defensive end. And then they got to go receiver second round to kind of solidify that because obviously they traded away Calvin Ridley. And then after that, just kind of keep hammering away at the offensive line and the defense. And because if they add a secondary cornerback and safety trio with obviously with AJ Terrell, that could be a pretty lethal defense that can be created overnight. But I think they're
Absolutely. No,
closer
they
than
have
people give
some.
them credit for.
No, you're absolutely right, and they have some fantastic players too. I mean, Drake London had a pretty darn good rookie year. If Kyle Pitts can get the ball, even some guys like Tamir Bird, he was actually getting
Yeah.
targets. He was scoring great touchdowns. Cordero, if they're able to keep him, and Algier, that's an amazing 1-2 punch because they both do different things, and they're very on defense too. Terrell, Grady Jarrett. I mean, they have some very good players if they can just figure out the defense and the O line. They're like the Falcons have a roster, and that's why at one point in the season, and they of course they have a great kicker too, Younghoe Koo. They were 500, and they were pushing like top of their division, which isn't saying
Yeah, I
most
mean then
since
like
it's the
they
NFC
and they
South,
it's not like they choked away that. They were in some close games and they just couldn't
Yeah.
couldn't get on the other side of. I mean, you know that as a Chargers fan, with those
absolutely, yeah,
good old one possession losses, like it's tough and it's always so weird. There's always such a weird feeling in the air when you're watching a week 17 game of
yeah,
a team that's not making the playoffs.
yeah,
They're kind of just going at like the game ends, the Falcons win, and the players are walking off the field, and you're like, damn, like that. There's a lot of optimism going forward, like in this offseason. Even though like you had a 6-win season, 7-win season, like you're like you're going in there, you're like, man, like we could turn it around.
A couple draft picks away from being like, fantastic team. But yeah. So Loch, I kind of gave mine Travis Kelce, short runner up is Amon-Ra St. Brown. I thought he was gonna have a great year, drafted him in both leagues. He was fantastic. I love Detroit, one of my favorite teams in the NFL to watch. If you had to pick a fantasy MVP for your team, who would you say it was?
I'd say it's Joe Burrow for me. Joe Burrow. It's between Joe Burrow and Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon simply because of that 55-point game he put up. That was sick.
Wow. Legendary.
But he was also a he put up double digits for me in every game except for 2. Now he did miss a couple games with injury, but that's okay. He was solid for me. But Joe Burrow, for all the heat he was taking preseason and stuff about, do not draft. Like, I can't tell you the amount of like Instagram videos and TikToks I saw of, like, do not draft this quarterback, and it's like Joe Burrow. It's like, why? Like the man's in what, year 3?
Yep.
Year 3 of coming up being a number 1 overall pick with an improved O-line from the year before, and even more chemistry with his number 1 wideouts. And his receiver core. Like, you're telling me not to draft this man, even though they just went to the Super Bowl. Like, and it's funny because everyone was high on like a guy like Allen Robinson and Cam Akers, Stafford, and like the Rams and stuff, because they were like, oh yeah, the Rams have the team, and like they theoretically do. But this season was just a disaster for them.
You're actually completely right, and I didn't think about that. It's the opposite this year. It's the team that won the Super Bowl.
Yeah. And it was the Super Bowl hangover, man. I'm telling you, it's real, and usually that's only the start of the season, but they were like this. They
got worse as the season went on.
Injuries, yeah, that played a huge factor. Like when Cooper Kupp is out for the year, same with Matt Stafford. You have issues with running back. Allen Robinson just disappears. Like all this, that, and the next. And now your 35-year-old head coach is talking about retiring, and you're like, okay, what? Like, so yeah, but it's strange how that went. Where the Bengals were the runners up in the Super Bowl last year, lost a tough game, and then came right back a few months later and said we're gonna push, and won the division again, and look where they are. Like.
I hate to say it because I don't love obviously Cincinnati, but they are a legitimate shot to make the Super Bowl again and win.
They're a legitimate shot because they're the same team that was out there last year with just a better O-line.
Yeah, and more experience. That's so
like,
true.
And that's the scary part of it is like they made a pretty insane run last year.
Yeah,
with one of the scrappiest defenses I've ever seen. Like not very talented in the secondary whatsoever. But just found ways to like cause havoc, and it was weird, but it worked. And speaking of the playoffs, do you want to make some picks for the wild card round?
Why not? Before we end the episode, let's do some wild card week picks. So we have all the matchups right here. We'll go starting from Saturday. Seahawks 49ers. Who you got?
As much as I love the fact that Russell, here's another thing that should have gone the other way: the Russell Wilson trade.
That's yeah.
Holy smokes, is Seattle looking good to get that division back again? My God, what do they have? 2 first-round picks this year?
They have
what's the
so
fifth
many
overall?
picks.
They have
It's
the
not just
fifth
first
overall pick
rounders.
this year. Yeah,
Yeah,
and they have
they have a
second
bunch of
rounders,
first
third round.
round.
Yeah.
And
They're
not to
and
mention their defense, like Tariq Woolen. That guy is
yeah,
an absolute stud.
yeah.
Stud.
They are looking so nice for the next couple years. Um,
That being said,
as happy as I was that they made the playoffs, and I will say before the season started, did I not say that the Seahawks are going to be better than people make them out to be?
you said it. We're
People
giving you
people were
full
like
credit.
people were making them out to be like lottery contenders with the Texans.
No.
And I just like didn't see that happening. I don't know. Like I just don't think a team that contends for the division every year, trades away their quarterback, gets a lot of pieces in return is like that much worse.
No,
I don't know.
absolutely.
I
The
just didn't
biggest
see it.
concern was how Gino would play, and Gino played phenomenal. I mean, he was
Yeah, he was
arguably the
great.
best quarterback for through the first 7 or 8 weeks. So
Yeah. Anyway, as much as I love the Seahawks and love the story that they had this year, the Niners are just such a juggernaut.
Mhm.
Like, and I know like Brock Purdy's their quarterback, but he has not been bad. He really hasn't been bad. He's been quite efficient actually.
Yeah.
And if worst comes to worst, you hand the ball off to who? Oh yeah, Christian McCaffrey. And by the way, you still have one of the best defenses in football. This team, that the Niners aren't being talked about enough as a contender, simply because of Brock Purdy.
Mhm.
If Jimmy Garoppolo is at quarterback right now, they're a bona fide Super Bowl contender, but they're not because they don't have a good starting quarterback.
Yeah, and that's the biggest concern is can Purdy be consistent with his team? So you're taking the Niners over the Seahawks, and I agree. That being said, kind of similar to what you said at the beginning of the year, this game is going to be much closer than people think.
Yes.
The Seahawks actually have a good defense. They can move the ball on offense, and the Niners just simply they're a bit better at everything, and in my opinion, they're much better coached. So that defense too, stellar. And if Purdy can get some stuff together. Personally, I don't want to go too much into this because our next episodes are going to be talking more about the playoffs and predictions. But Niners, I think, are going to come out of the NFC, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's definitely not ridiculous to say.
So,
next
that's
up,
our early one on Saturday, and
Yeah.
then the later one. My goodness, who is it? It is the Chargers of Los Angeles in Jacksonville to take on the 9-8 Jaguars. No one saw that coming at the beginning of the year. That division was almost a lock for the Colts or Tennessee. The Colts had one.
I would say
divisions.
Tennessee easy. That should have been a lock
even
easily for Tennessee.
Beginning, like I'm talking, and I was one of the people who said that too. Before the season, on paper, no injuries. Indianapolis looked absolutely fantastic. Their defense was really good. Tennessee was right there with them, and then Tennessee loses the game, the game that was like to win the division.
Well, so Tennessee was at one point, were they not 7-3?
Yes, and the
Did
Jaguars
they not
were
lose
3-7.
8? Did they not lose?
They lost
8
7 in a row.
Or 7 in a like that's just a colossal collapse on Tennessee's end.
So Mike Vrabel might be fired. I mean, definitely move some pieces around. Of course,
But
yeah.
at the same, like for Tennessee, like you don't have any receivers.
Yeah, the only one
you have Derrick Henry.
Yeah,
you don't have a good defense.
No.
Do you do you just blow it up or do you try and work some stuff around? And because like Malik Willis wasn't even starting, like they're not even putting faith. They're not even trying to put faith in their first round or second round draft pick from last year.
Well, that's true. Like that's actually a pretty good point with Tennessee because they do have some talented players, but like they don't have too much of a future with that team. Like the best player on offense other than Henry is
no
Burks.
Future. Yeah.
And Burks is a good receiver, but he can't do it by himself. He's way too young. He needs to be like, obviously helping out. But anyways, the Jaguars made it. Kudos to them. You mentioned Tennessee.
I was so happy with the Jags.
The Jags were 3-7.
Yeah.
Up at the same point that Tennessee was 7-3. They came back at a phenomenal end to the year. Good for them. Lawrence was arguably at one point he was the best quarterback in football through a 3-week stretch. He had like
He was
14
money.
touchdowns.
He was so money.
So he was fantastic. And this is an interesting matchup too, because I remember the team that the Chargers played first after losing to Kansas City on Thursday Night Football in week 2. And that was a game that Herbert like just destroyed his rib cartilage. Was the Jags.
They
the
lost.
Jags pumped them. The Jags pumped the Chargers at home.
Yeah.
Injury-riddled Chargers. It's a bit different story. Mike Williams is still questionable. I think he will end up playing or get limited snaps or something in that game. But it's a very good game between two young quarterbacks. Jacksonville, people don't really give them the credit that they do. They have a phenomenal fan base, and they actually get really loud.
Oh yeah,
yeah, definitely field. So
well, yeah, I mean when you're a fan base like, and same can be said for Cincinnati, and same can be said for Arizona. So when you're a fan of a team that's been mediocre to not great at best for the last ever, as it like Jacksonville, when your team starts to do well and wins games, like that brings people to the stadium. That puts butts in seats, and
absolutely.
that just unites a fan base. And I think we saw that a lot last year with Cincinnati too. Cincinnati went from a first overall lottery team getting their future quarterback and all of a sudden building around him. Mm-hmm. And then that playoff run was just indicative of that, I think. And same with Arizona. Like Arizona's and they're a project, by the way, but we're not going to talk about them. But they're like nice, great fans. Don't mind if they lose, but when they win, like they're going to really turn up.
No, absolutely. And that Jacksonville's just like that. And by the way, this is a game that the Chargers could absolutely drop. I have no doubt in my mind. This is a toss-up. I'd love to see how they deal with it. Very exciting stuff. Herbert's first playoff game. Personally, I have the Chargers in this just because I think if it comes to a shootout, Herbert is a bit better than Trevor Lawrence in that case. And both defenses can be questionable as well. So if it does come to a shootout, both have pretty good darn offenses. I think the Chargers take it.
I'm a firm believer that it's really, really hard to beat a team twice in the same season, especially for the Chargers. They got humiliated on their home field.
Yep.
I have the Chargers by a very slim margin in this game. And I'm telling you why, because this is going to be a mistake-riddled game from both quarterbacks. Mm-hmm. Because don't forget, like it's also Trevor Lawrence's first playoff game in the NFL. Yeah. And yeah, he played some huge college games in his lifetime. But I just think it's a little bit different playing in the NFL playoffs than it is in college.
Absolutely.
Especially when you are the best quarterback in college and Trevor Lawrence is not the best quarterback in the NFL. I just think it's a little bit different. And I also think it's fitting that the Chargers are going to go into this game potentially without or at a limited capacity of their number one wideout, Mike Williams. I just think that's so on brand for them because they've been fighting. The fact that their record is what it is with all the injuries and all the adversity they've had to fought through this year, losing key pieces on the defensive end especially, and playing without Keenan Allen, and guys being on and off the IR and the O-line and whatnot not being fully healthy the whole year. I think the Chargers battle through this, and it's going to be a low-scoring game. There's going to be a lot of mistakes on both ends. You're going to see two really inexperienced teams kind of battle it out, and I think the Chargers are going to win this by like a last-minute field goal. But it's going to be a messy game.
Your knowledge of the Chargers never ceases to amaze me. Like, no, seriously, like that was that was incredible. That, like, very, very much props to you. You absolutely know what you're talking about because everything you said was so true. There was a moment like this last year where you started going off on like how the importance of Jalen Guyton.
Oh yeah, Jalen. Yeah, it was Jalen Guyton. Yeah.
The importance of him to the Chargers team, and I was like, yeah, like I don't have to say anything. That's an extremely good prediction too, because they're both so young, so inexperienced. But yeah, slugfest in that one. But we both have the Chargers. Then fast forward to Sunday, we have Dolphins and Bills minus 13.5 for Buffalo. Obviously, we've seen all the Tua memes of how they're going to try to drag him out of the locker room dead, like Weekend at Bernie's or something like that, because this guy's not going to be playing, which is really too bad for him. That would have been a great game. Obviously, we're both nervous because I think we both want Buffalo to win, but I certainly have the Bills in this one. In my opinion, in every way, they overpower The Dolphins, maybe, except the only thing you can argue maybe receiving core, but the quarterback makes the receiving core, obviously. And Josh Allen is so special. He's been waiting for this moment, not to mention they're playing for and with Damar Hamlin. So I think they're going to win that one.
They got a lot of other powers behind them right now, and their team is as close as I think any team will ever be. And the city obviously has their support and is gonna fuel their fire. Another year too, where you're looking at for the Bills, if they go far enough, they potentially will have to go back to Arrowhead. But for me, as long as the Bills
was it Arrowhead, or is that a neutral site game now?
You're right.
I think it would be a neutral. Well, it's either. Well,
right.
I know for a fact that Cincinnati is a neutral site game if they played each other, but I think it might be the same with Kansas City. Because if Buffalo
you might be right
in that game against Cincinnati, they would have the 1 seed.
That's true. It's a good point.
Regardless.
We'll have to wait and see. We'll have to. I don't want to look too far ahead, but I think as long as the Bills have home field, they're going to be A-okay. I also think it's a total injustice that they're the first game on the slate on Sunday.
Yeah, ridiculous.
I think that should be a night game in Buffalo, personally.
And the only reason that is because of Skylar Thompson. That's his name, right?
Yeah. But I'm gonna give a lot of credit to the Dolphins here. They fought through a ton in the last part of the season. They were contending with the Bills for the number 1 seed in the AFC East, and then they just went on a really tough stretch of football to end the season. I think they're gonna put up a good fight. I think they're gonna do as best as they can, but I still do think the Bills are gonna just outmatch them in every way. There's just too much experience on the Bills side in all regards, really. Not to mention that Micah Hyde is back.
Yes.
Huge addition. Yeah. That'll just spark that defense like you won't believe. And I think the Bills win this game.
Minus 13.5 Buffalo, like I mentioned. So that's the early one. Then the midday one on Sunday is Giants and Vikings. Phenomenal game. And I want to hear what's your take for this one.
This is similar to Seattle. The Giants resting a lot of players last week really helped them. They're going to be just a little bit more healthy coming into this week. But one thing that's weird is the Vikings didn't have the best ending to the year.
Yeah,
we all know that. But everyone is so quick now to write the Vikings off yet again. And and this baffles me because all season the media has been doing nothing but continue to write the Vikings off. Like before they beat the Bills, everyone was incredulous that the Vikings were the team that they are. And yeah, maybe on paper it doesn't match their record as much, but they continue to go out there and win football games.
Yeah, that's true.
Like the record was speaking for itself in that regard. And I think the Vikings at home win this game against the Giants. There's no reason why this Vikings team can't beat a Giants team that is simply not as good. And again, I loved the fact that the Giants got into the playoffs and the way that they did, just scrapping it out all year long. I love that.
Yeah.
Because they were in a fight with a few other teams for that last playoff spot there.
Came down to the end.
But again, I think the Vikings have too good of an offense and a good enough defense that they're just better than the Giants in my mind.
It's a nice take, but I'm actually going to take a contrary position on this one. And I was debating this for a little while, but I do think the Giants are going to win. I agree with what you said, though. People write Minnesota off way too much. But this comes down to, I think, the running game. I think Saquon Barkley and the Giants have a fantastic game on the ground. And not just that, the Vikings, the thing with them, they have to have a fantastic offensive game pretty much to win any of their football games, because all of their defense is good. Usually it's not good enough to win them the game. It's their offense. And I think Giants defense, I think Dable, I really like Brian Dable as their head coach, obviously former Bills offensive coordinator. I think that the Giants are coached really well. I think they're ready for this one. And this is one of the ones where I can see a bit of an upset. And I don't think the Vikings have the most fantastic game offensively, meaning that this is not good enough to win them the game. So I'm going to take the Giants in that one. Then that was the first one where we disagree, actually. Then we have Ravens and Bengals on Sunday Night Football. I'll go first, especially because Lamar's probably not going to play. Even if he does play, he hasn't been with a team to build that kind of chemistry, whatnot towards the end of the season.
Lamar is so far out the door in Baltimore. It's crazy. So far out the door.
Many people think that he's going to go maybe to Indianapolis or, even there's so many other
Washington,
places.
maybe.
Yeah, Washington. A lot of places, but I have the Bengals in this one pretty handsomely as well. They're just so good offensively. Their defense is all right. Like, obviously, better than average defense, but their offense is just so good. When Burrow's on point, he's top 3 quarterback in the league, in my opinion. It's hard to stop T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, and Tyler Boyd. So I have the Bengals.
Yeah. Well, and don't forget as well, they've been through this before. Similar script from last year. So there's no reason, because I feel like the book is kind of closing on the Ravens. Like, I feel like if they lose this game, they lost to the Bills a couple years ago. They lost to who they lose to last year? Was it the Bengals again?
Who, the Bills?
No, the Ravens.
Oh, the Ravens. Ooh,
I forget, but they lost last year as well. I feel like with Lamar leaving, the window is shut for them to do anything. They've tried to draft and develop receivers. They've tried it all. It hasn't worked. Lamar's out the door. This is going to be the final chapter, kind of shutting in on the Ravens, and they're going to probably have to go back into rebuild mode, which is tough for them. But yeah, I definitely have the Bengals in this game.
Yeah. And actually, was it the Bengals last year who beat them? I'm trying to think back. It wasn't Kansas City, it wasn't Buffalo. I think it might have been the Bengals. But anyhow, we both have the Bengals in this one. Then, like we said, we were talking about this before. Monday Night Football.
America's least favorite game, Cowboys Buccaneers. Oh my God.
Literally.
Oh my God.
And this one, actually, I think will be a pretty decent game. And
this will actually be like, for the heat I'm giving it, this is actually gonna be a great game.
Tom Brady on the road in no, not on the road. Sorry, not on the road.
No, he's at home.
Division winner. My bad.
He's at home.
He's a division winner. I personally have the Buccaneers, even though they have an 8-9 record. The Cowboys, I think Dak leads the league in interceptions, and the Buccaneers defense has like 8 turnovers in their last 3 games, or something close to that. Defense has been playing very, very, very well. Their offense has picked it up. They've progressively gotten somewhat better throughout the last couple weeks, and it's Tom Brady in the playoffs. I don't think you can ever count him out. And just the pure strength that this Bucs team's had, that still has. They still have so many of the players that started and won the Super Bowl for them.
Almost all of them, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, well, I think I think the Buccaneers win this game as well. I don't like Tom Brady. I don't like the Cowboys. But I liked it. I liked the days a lot better when the Cowboys weren't in the postseason.
Oh yeah.
But anyway, I think the Bucs win this game. To your point again, they've been building consistently for the last 3-4 weeks into the playoffs, and no one has said a word.
Mm-hmm.
They have a lot of internal momentum despite what their record says, but everyone's focusing on their record and writing them off.
Yeah.
Mind you, Dallas's pass rush and Micah Parsons have been quite good. It'll be interesting to see what Mike Evans does to Trayvon Diggs, though. Because as you and I both know, Trayvon Diggs either picks off a pass or
gets blown,
completely misses his coverage.
Yeah, gets absolutely cooked. But yeah, just to play devil's advocate for the Cowboys, if they were to win that game, in my opinion, it's one in the trenches, and it's Tony Pollard and Zeke pounding the football into the end zone.
Yes.
In my opinion, the best 1-2 punch in football is.
But at the same time, it's going to be tough with that Buccaneers linebacker duo.
No, exactly, and that's what I'm saying. If they were to win the game, they find a way to beat Levante David and Devin White. But regardless, should be a pretty good game. Great slate of football coming up, and
also one more thing with that game too. Isn't Mike McCarthy's also, if I'm not mistaken, never won a game against Tom Brady in the playoffs? Correct.
Yes, I don't think he ever has, and he's on the chopping block is what he is. His job is very much on the line,
which is I don't understand that. They got the life of coaches in Dallas is just stupid.
Yeah, And honestly,
They let Jason Garrett go on too long, and now they're gonna chop Mike McCarthy when he hasn't had enough time. It's like, oh god.
yeah, and the thing is, like, you might have to look at what do you do with Dak? He's 29, I think, right now. I think he's 29. He might be 30.
Yeah.
He's been in the league for quite a while, actually. And like
It's
if
like
you
2016, right? Like
yeah, and if you think about that, it's
like,
actually crazy to think his predecessor, or right before him, Tony Romo. Like
Yeah.
it literally went from Romo to Dak, and Romo's doing games for CBS, which is just crazy how long that Dak's actually been there. So he needs to start proving that he could win a playoff game, which has been Dallas's knock for the last 25 years or so. But should be interesting. And yeah, that pretty much concludes our first episode of the new year of 2023. Feels good to be back.
very good.
Yeah, and so like I mentioned a bit earlier, going forward, we're going to be just talking about not fantasy anymore, maybe somewhat here and there, but the NFL, kind of like we did last year. We had some great playoff episodes and stuff like that.
We had a lot of fun last year with those.
Oh,
Those are good.
so much fun. We're going to look to get maybe a guest or two to come in and talk about it with us. But yeah, that's been this episode, guys.
Yeah, and if you have any suggestions for us, or I mean, obviously we're gonna there's not a lot we can do right now. I mean, we're gonna obviously revisit our picks next week and see how we did. We're either gonna be doing really really well or really not well because we had very similar picks.
Yeah, very true. Only disagreed on the Giants Vikings, I think it was.
Yeah, that's such a there's a few toss ups in this round. Which you know what? Hey, that's great. It's the wild card round. That's what it's supposed to be.
Wild card weekend. Crazy Monday
Yep.
Night Football. Yeah. But anyways, we'll see you guys next week for an episode. Until then, take care and enjoy the playoffs. We'll see you next week.